people of color have greater access to educational and financial opportunity than in previous years. More people of color are being elected to political office. We've even had a black president. So why do you feel the need to still talk about race? I'm going to ask you a few questions about race, and I want you all to just think of the answer in your head. No need to share, just think of responses. Do you think being white gives you an advantage in our society? Do you think it has become more common for people to share racist views now than 3 years ago? When it comes to racial discrimination, do you think the bigger problem is seeing discrimination where it does not exist, or not seeing discrimination where it does exist? About half of white people believe being white gives them an advantage in society, while 14% believe that it actually provides a negative effect, according to the Pew Research Center. 65% of adults believe that people are more commonly expressing racist views now in our society than just 3 years ago. And 77% of Republicans believe the biggest issue is seeing discrimination where it does not exist, while 78% of Democrats believe it is not seeing discrimination where it does exist. But all these statistics weren't facts, merely opinions. Some people believe extreme racism is long gone, while others believe it is more prominent than ever. So that brings me back to my original question. How much does race truly influence our lives? This country's history of racism is something that we've all studied and read about in class. We picture slavery, lynchings, and Jim Crow. We envision Martin Luther King Jr. marching in protest of segregated buses, and the Little Rock Nine staring down a crowd of racists who recalled the thought of integration. But we too little picture the racism that plagues today's America. Because discrimination was so overwhelmingly rampant and obvious in the past, it becomes harder to see it now. African Americans are no longer sentenced to using separate facilities, and interracial couples aren't ostracized from society. But that doesn't mean that racism doesn't exist. Just because we have moved forward doesn't mean that we have solved the problem or that it magically disappeared on its own. Due to the history of institutional racism in our country, people of color remain at a systematic disadvantage. The policies and attitudes implemented a century ago continue to define the structure of our society. Where we once accepted redlining, we now accept extreme poverty confined in ghettos in urban cities. Macon, Georgia was the most redlined area in the 30s. 91% of these redlined areas are still largely populated by minorities, earning low to moderate income, and 35% of African Americans in Macon live in poverty, compared to 13% of whites. Where we once accepted common policing and public chain gangs, we now accept mass incarceration of people of color, especially African Americans. Due to felon disenfranchisement, 1 out of 13 African Americans have lost the right to vote, which is 4 times that of any other race. And because of felon disenfranchisement, the era of mass incarceration has been more effective in eliminating black voters than the era of Jim Crow. Where we once praised police officers for murdering black men in defense of white women, we now excuse and exonerate them for killing unarmed black and brown people. Young black males make up 2% of the U.S. population, but comprise 15% of all deaths at the hands of police logged in 2015, 5 times the comparison number for whites. Roughly 25% of blacks that were killed were unarmed, according to the Guardian. You see, none of these discriminatory mindsets and ideals went away. Racism remains fully active and present, but has shifted to fit the times and standards of today's America. This became this. This became this. And this became this. So now that we all know, or at least now realize, that there is a systematic disadvantage between races in America, the question now is how do we solve it? Well, one way to start is by improving the criminal justice system as a whole. Because people of color are arrested and incarcerated at significantly greater rates than whites, they are facing detrimental consequences. So a way to quell this would be to take an enlightened view on prisons. Countries like the Netherlands and Germany have implemented progressive criminal enforcement programs that are encompassed around reforming criminals and helping their reentry into society. In both countries, prisons are more humane and used less often. Fines are preferred over incarceration, and sentences in general are significantly shorter than those in the Because of their focus on reforming criminals, their prison population is almost 90% lower than that of the U.S. If we lowered the rates of incarceration, automatically thousands of African Americans would have a better chance of raising their children, finding employment, and voting. Children and teens from minority and lower socioeconomic populations would have a lower chance of being put into the system at a young age and reducing their probability of jail time and committing a crime later in life. This alone raises the chances of them graduating from both standard and higher education, especially when coupled with notably more funding to poor minority-populated schools. While policies like these sound simple enough to implement, they will not work until people examine their own personal biases. While the system is what targets people of color, it is people who make up the system. It is people in our society, not so different from those of you in this room, who are the ones who pull over African Americans substantially more than whites, reject funding to low-income schools, convict people of color at higher rates, enact gentrification, deny African Americans from employment, choose not to expand businesses in minority-populated, lower socioeconomic neighborhoods, etc. Even when laws are created or policies are instituted that are supposed to make this country more equitable, they are overturned or suspended by the next person who gets to make the decisions. So in order to truly cure this country of racism, work must be done on both a systematic and personal level. That is the only way to create lasting change. Thank you.
It is 10:30 on May 9th, 2019. A 911 call has just been made to the Hartford Police Department reporting 2 shots and a man running down Mall Avenue in Clay Archie, which is in northern Hartford. At 10:31, this report is confirmed. This is confirmed using the ShotSpotter system, which is also known as the Flex system. This is an innovative new system that was implemented and is used now across the country. It uses acoustic sensors, like these right here, to basically triangulate and detect gunshots. It will use a network of dozens and dozens of these sensors across Hartford and alerts police anytime a firearm is discharged. The audio clip is then compiled and sent to ShotSpotter analysts all the way in Ohio. These audio files are then analyzed, and if it's deemed that this is a gunshot, the report is sent all the way back to the Hartford Police Department. At 10:32, police officers are dispatched to the scene. They're given those precise coordinates and are able to track the suspect. In fact, they're already in the area because artificial intelligence has placed them on a patrol route that maximizes their efficiency. This same technology is able to predict exactly when and where specific types of crime may occur. Beyond that, they track the suspect using CCTV, closed-circuit television footage, across the city. At this point, about 11.5 square miles of Hartford are covered by CCTV footage. And again, a person can be tracked within this area pretty much to a fault. So here's a good example of this. A person could be walking down the street. Facial recognition picks them up. And if this person is likely to be associating with a known criminal, then they are logged into the system. Likewise, if a suspicious package is left on the sidewalk, then that too will be picked up by the system. What's called the milestone system actually is integrated into the ShotSpotter system, the ShotSpotter mission system. And in this way, if that suspicious package is left on the street, a police officer patrolling nearby can be rerouted in order to make sure that this doesn't pose a threat to the community. So keep in mind that right now we are at about 10:35. This response time is already at least 6 minutes shorter than it would have been 3, even 4 years ago when these same pieces of technology were not implemented. At about 10:35, police officers are responding. They arrive on the scene and apprehend the suspect. At 10:41, the forensic evidence is collected. Police are able to find over 150% of the bullet casings that would have been found without ShotSpotter and without the milestone systems. At 10:43, after the 5-minute ride back to the police headquarters, the arrest is locked. The person is put into a 7-by-8 foot holding cell for a few hours until they are released on bail. The trial begins a few months later. Evidence is entered by the shot fire system itself, from the bullet casings that were found, from police testimony, from witness and expert witness testimony. All of this bolsters the case, and the person is eventually charged and sentenced with possession of narcotics, intent to distribute, discharging of a firearm, and illegal possession of an unregistered firearm. He's sentenced to about 15 years in prison with parole. After about 12 of those years, the person's let out of prison, spends about 2 years on probation, and is going to end up in an office that looks a lot like this one. Essentially, the person is then assessed. They go through what's called the level of risk inventory assessment and look at contributing factors like substance abuse, possible technical violations that could set the person off course towards meeting their quotas, and factors that could contribute to what are called criminogenic means. This means any factors which would, in other words, encourage them to commit a crime again. All of this is aimed towards reducing this person's risk of recidivism, their risk to, again, like I said, to recommit a crime and have in addition to their criminal record. They also look at the community-based risk reduction outline, and that places them on a scale from 1 to 3 and essentially assesses their threats to the community. They go into certain departments. Some are based for domestic violence, some for women who've been victims of domestic violence, for firearm-related cases, for even ones that are specifically dealing with mental health. Essentially, during or after this period, a person can be required to be part of a rehabilitation program. In Hartford, these are pretty common. You probably drive by the village every day to get to school. Reasoning, rehabilitation, and the community renewal team are other pretty common ones. These are pretty much aimed towards getting people back on their feet. They help people who've been incarcerated to find jobs, to support their families, and to improve their overall quality of life. What I just described is pretty much the best case scenario. In Hartford, issues can come up with, in Hartford or really anywhere, issues can come up with compiling evidence, with delayed response times, with a lack of acceptance into these rehabilitation programs in the first place, or even delayed caseloads. Essentially, Hartford is pursuing innovative solutions, but there are, of course, bumps along the way. Like I said, though, these innovative solutions are going above and beyond what other cities have done. The first example of these could be found with the Compass program. A couple decades ago, the police department decided that there was a major problem, and it was that police officers aren't interacting with the people they're meant to serve enough. Essentially, the Compass program was aimed towards getting police officers out into the communities that they serve and interacting with those community members. Along with this philosophy, substations were set up across the city. This right here is the Albany Avenue stretch, and that patch of grass used to be one of these substations. This is what it looks like today. Basically, this program was very successful. There were articles about it in the Hartford Courant praising it because police officers were actually out and interacting with the residents of these neighborhoods. But unfortunately, it became far too expensive for the city to sustain. And what happened is having a whole bunch of police, small police stations, didn't become as economical as was predicted. So what happened is the funding got cut and the system was shut down. Instead, we now run smaller programs. We don't have an expansive network of substations across the city. We have one central police station, which does save money, but it has its risks. So what happens now? We have these programs. One of them is the Good Vibrations program. This has been like a model program. The New York Times did an expose about it, where they detailed how the police officers would go to it. It's essentially a music lesson, where the police officers and youth in the community come together to learn things like guitar. And when the police officers went initially, the New York Times mentioned that they would stand in the corner with their arms crossed. But after a couple of weeks, after a couple of sessions, the police officers were far more engaged. One of the most touching stories that came out of this was actually when the police officers were patrolling in one of these neighborhoods and were greeted by some of the kids from the These types of programs foster positive interaction between the police and the communities that they serve. And it's because of these strong programs like these and the innovative mindset that Hartford is still a progressive example of a city taking policing into the 21st century. Thank you.
The gender revolution, transgender, non-binary, gender roles, gender expression, gender identity, these are all buzzwords in 21st century politics. On one side, conservatives use biblical ideology to justify hatred, and on the other, liberals make factually incorrect arguments that actually do more harm than help. My name is Jamie Toomey, and I'm a real-life, ready buzzword, everyone, transgender man, and I am here to put the correct in politically correct. So, what is gender? Take a moment to think about why you feel male or female. Do you feel it in your brain, in your heart? How do you know that your mind is in the right body? A cisgender person is someone who identifies as their biological gender, while a transgender person is someone who transitions to another gender. I'll be using the words cis and trans to describe cisgender and transgender people throughout this presentation. Let's take a look at some interviews to understand some far-right arguments against trans people.
Slippery slope. And call me old-fashioned, but I still believe the thing in your pants really isn't up for negotiation. Hell, why don't we all just start self-identifying for perps? Tomorrow I'll park in a handicapped spot and self-identify as someone with disabilities. And the next day, maybe get a spray tan and self-identify as another race so I can reap those benefits too? Or am I not allowed to say that? Not politically correct? Does it make you uncomfortable when I say that? Well, free-for-all bathrooms make the folks in North Carolina uncomfortable.
One more.
Is she brave? Of course she's brave. All those years invested as this sports legend, to come out transgender is horribly difficult. It is the most difficult thing you can do. I've been overseas, I've flown helicopter missions, surveillance missions, I've been shot, stabbed. Being brave is being yourself, and being transgender is about the bravest thing you can do. Did she deserve the award?
Why would you call it delusion?
Because Bruce Caitlyn Jenner, I'll call him Caitlyn Jenner.
No, it's
That's
her. You're not being polite to the pronoun.
Because
disrespect.
Okay, forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings. It turns out that every chromosome, every cell in Caitlyn Jenner's body is male, with the exception of some of his sperm cells. It turns out that he's got It turns out that he still has all of his male appendages. How he feels on the inside is relevant to the question of his biologicals.
Well, sir, I'd like to lay down some facts that don't care about your feelings. In a study done in 2018 at the University of Leeds in Belgium, transgender and cisgender boys and girls were examined for differences in brain activation patterns. Now, they found that the brain activity in transgender boys and girls was analogous to the brain activity of the sex with which they identified. This means that a transgender boy in this study had the same brain activation patterns as a cisgender boy in the same study. Now, in a visual spatial exercise, transgender boys were observed to have neurotypical brain activation patterns as well. And what's more, the brain structures of transgender boys and girls also closely resembled the brain structure of cisgender boys and girls. Now, a transgender person has that feeling. The same one that tells you you're in the right body tells me I'm in the wrong body. This study justifies that feeling and proves that there are, in fact, biological differences between male and female brains, both cis and transgender. Another interesting study was done in voice gender perception in male to female transgender individuals. Using an fMRI, trans women, cis women and cis men were all analyzed. It's been proven that people are better at recognizing the voice of the opposite sex, and the transgender females perform far closer to the biological females than cisgender males, once again proving that neurologically, the transgender brain performs analogous to the gender These studies prove a scientific basis in being transgender. So there you have it. There's some scientific proof that trans people do, in fact, exist. I was born the way I was because of a hormonal deficiency in the womb, and science has proved time and time again that my brain is the same as some of the male brains in the audience today. Unfortunately, the far left view is no more accurate. These are some of the tweets that come up when you search gender is a social construct. I'd like to look beyond the MRIs to some psychological studies to develop a better understanding of gender as a concept. Now, a psychologist named John Money performed a horrific and inhumane experiment in the 1960s. A young boy named David Raymer was born biologically male, but his penis was botched during circumcision, and John Money convinced the family to reconstruct Raymer's penis into a vagina and give him female hormones to induce female puberty. Raymer grew up without knowing that he was biologically male and eventually came out as transgender. He began to identify as male and said that he had always had gender dysphoria, which is the mental illness caused by disconnect between mind and body in transgender individuals. He medically transitioned by taking male hormones and undergoing surgery, but suffered from numerous mental illnesses and killed himself at the age of 38. This case, horrible as it is, offers us insight into that feeling of gender. Though he was raised as a female, Raymer felt male and did, in fact, have a biologically male brain. A biological man on female hormones experiences the same gender dysphoria as a transgender man like me. Raymer's female upbringing couldn't change the gender in his mind. This proves, stronger than anything, that gender is not a social construct. No female toys, dresses, long hair, or estrogen could change Raymer's gender. And the same goes for transgender people. And with these scientific studies in mind, it seems invalidating to say that gender is not real. Gender has to exist in order for trans people to exist. It's real because I have that feeling, which we can now scientifically explain. Another study examines toy choices in cisgender children between the ages of 1 and 8. The children most commonly chose toys associated with their gender. There was no difference observed within geographical location, presence of adults, date of study, or age of child. This proves that the children's toy choices were not influenced by upbringing or environment, and suggests that some part of gender roles may actually be innate and instinct. This study further proves that gender is not a social construct through documenting the inherent instinct to gravitate towards toys that were designed for the gender with which a child identifies. Gender must be real and neurological. Now, this is particularly validating for someone like me. I've always had that feeling that something's off, and it's important to me, an actual trans person, that both liberals and conservatives understand the implications of their claims. My identity, for example, is not a fad or a trend, and I'll never grow out of it. It's also not quirky or fun to be trans. It's more than who I say I am and who I want to be. It's how my brain is wired and how it interacts with my body, which we can now understand through these scientific studies. It's not something that can be changed, and we need to start treating trans people with more sincerity and a multifaceted understanding of the issue. Transgender people only make up 0.6% of the US population. Of that 0.6%, 128 trans people have been murdered within the past 5 years. Of these victims, 74% were misgendered in police reports and articles. The Human Rights Campaign has labeled transgender violence as an epidemic. Nearly half of all trans people in the US will be verbally assaulted within the next year. 1 in 10 will be physically attacked. All the while, the Trump administration continues to push to redefine gender as immutable and defined by chromosomes, which we now know is scientifically inaccurate. So next time you hear a buzzword about gender, think before you speak. Transgender people are often appropriated, glorified, or hated upon in politics. It's a hot topic, but few people actually know what they're talking about. Read up before you speak with authority on issues you don't understand, and if you're going to be politically correct, be correct about it. Thank you.
same agreement on this topic. Let's talk about it when you come back. Fine. That's how my conversation with my mom ended 2 weeks ago. To the point I was trying to explain to her was that every human is an independent individual. And once we are adult, decision making is our own business. But for my mother, this sounds too hard for her. This is one of many times I found it's really difficult to talk to my parents or people I knew back in China. I sometimes feel really disappointed, not because they don't understand. It's when they don't even want to listen when I try to explain to them. It is really difficult to agree on something that ties to our beliefs and values, which is shaped by the environment we currently live around. So this is my 4th year in the United States, and honestly, I don't know how long I'm gonna stay here. But one thing I'm pretty sure is, in the past 4 years, as an international student who left home at a young age, things are not easy. I can already feel the disconnection between me and generally the society in China. Every time I went home during breaks, my expectations always get a little bit crushed. So, when I was standing in the subway station, I could feel people staring at me, and they won't turn away their gaze until I look at them in the eye and invite them to stop looking. And if you're wondering what I was wearing, just like what I wear regularly in school day, t-shirts and jeans. So I was really curious what they're looking at. And at the moment, I feel something weird. The place I stood is the city I grew up. The place I spent 14 years in. But why I feel like a stranger in my hometown. If those are just some random people I may never meet again or talk to, those who really annoy me are relatives and friends of my parents. I honestly hate talking to them. Because their greetings always start off joking about the way I look and pay attention to nothing else. So 9 out of 10 times I've been told, you must have been eating really well in the US. In that moment, I wanted to yell at them and ask them to shut up. But I didn't. Every time, right off the edge of me getting mad, my mom always stepped in the conversation. Did she ever save me from those people? Not really. Because it's okay to embarrass her child, since she's just a child. But it's not okay to embarrass a friend. Since then, I spend most of my time either at home or in a bookstore, when everybody is focusing on their own business. So there are thousands of times when I'm thinking about telling them, no, this is inappropriate. This is not okay, and your words offended me, but I never did, not a single time. One of the reasons is I don't really know how to say it directly, especially to elders. This is just, again, social norms in China. So my parents are not here today, so they won't be able to see this talk. But I think there are other ways to express these ideas through different media. Okay. So this is a painting I finished recently, and the main setting is inside of an open train, and the background behind the glass window is the universe. So there's only a backpack that is placed on the seat, and apparently there's no sign of human being either inside the train or out in space. And you may notice the window is broken. So when I'm looking at the painting, my interpretation is life sometimes for me is one way, a non-stop train that seems like there's no end, like inside the universe. And you don't know what your destination is and which side of the world you really belong to. And that shoe of glass separated into two words seems so vague and easy to break through. But once you cross that barrier, things are unpredictable. And the missing person in the painting explains that it's also hard to define my existence on both communities. So during the process of painting, I started to question myself. Is it really worthy to come abroad? Losing all the connection and no longer fitting the society I was raised in. And at the same time, I'm not fully submerged into the U.S. community. I may know my way from my house to Big Y or think how things work in school, but there's still tons of things for me to learn to say, I know this country. So my friends and I did a research 2 months ago, and we reached out to 15 international students around the world, asked them the obstacle they face as international students. So the top one result we got was hard to assimilate into the local community. Join them, make friends, participate. It's always easier said than done. And I'm here sharing these stories, my stories, but also stories of millions of international students who have or used to have these thoughts and concerns. And it seems like we failed, since we get nothing from both sides. But if we look back carefully, did we really achieve nothing? Finish reading assignment on time, even if it took you twice longer. And keep learning new skills, because your mom isn't here to clean up your mess. And help an old couple in the airport translate when you don't feel confident enough about your English. All these little things, they may be insignificant to others, but for the ones who experience that is something. Something you should always remember and remind yourself that I'm proud of what I've overcome, and I'm proud of being an international student. Thank you.
I've had the privilege, honor, and sometimes the challenge of overseeing students through these capstone projects. Beyond their capstones, they have attended collectively over the past 2 years hundreds of events that have taken them from the Global Studies classroom to the University of Hartford, to Yale Rep to see a play, to Broadway to see the band's visit, to the delicious New World Mall food court in Chinatown in Flushing, Queens. And then also they've traveled to the DR, they've gone to Jordan. They've become global citizens. They think creatively, they think critically, they have dialogue with others, they think about the connections between things. They have earned their diplomas. So let's give them a round of applause. One more time, if you'd like to talk to another senior, if their table